When my daughter-in-law ripped apart my late wife's photograph right in front of me, I understood that family means nothing to some people. She thought the lakefront cottage was already hers, but I sold it within 6 weeks, packed every heirloom my parents left me, and walked away without looking back. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I checked my reflection in the truck window before walking up the gravel path. The gift bag felt heavy in my hand, weighted with meaning. Inside was a cedar jewelry box I'd commissioned from a craftsman in Tofino, hand-carved with the same pattern my father had used on our family's original cabin door back in 1962. I'd planned this moment for months, ever since I decided the Muskoka cottage should pass to Derek. The cottage stood exactly as it had for 60 years, weathered pine siding overlooking the lake, the dock my grandfather built still stretching into the dark water. 4 generations of Lawson summers lived in these walls. My parents honeymooned here. I proposed to my wife Eleanor on that dock. Derek took his first steps on this porch. Megan answered before I reached the door. "Harold, you're early." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She wore clothes I'd never seen, designer labels visible, jewelry catching the late afternoon sun. "Come in. I made dinner." Had she? In 3 years, she'd never cooked for me once. The living room stopped me cold. New furniture crowded the space. A massive leather sectional replaced my mother's modest sofa. Chrome and glass tables sat where her oak pieces had been. The walls looked bare, paintings rearranged or removed entirely. "Dad." Derek emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked thinner than last month, shoulders curved forward. "Thanks for coming up." Of course I came. I set the gift bag on the side table. "This is important." We sat at the dining table. Another new piece. Cold marble instead of the warm pine my father had built. Megan poured wine into crystal glasses I didn't recognize, filling hers nearly to the rim. The first course appeared, clearly catered, professional plating on dishes I'd never purchased. I waited until she finished serving. The moment felt ceremonial. I cleared my throat and placed the cedar box on the table between us. "Derek, Megan, I wanted tonight to be special." I opened the box, revealing the property deed underneath the carved lid. This cottage has been in the Lawson family since 1962. My grandfather built the original structure. He passed it to my parents, they passed it to me, and now I'm ready to pass it to you. I paused, letting the words settle. "Next month, I've arranged for a lawyer in Bracebridge to make the transfer official. The cottage will be yours, Derek, to keep in the family, to bring your own children here someday." Finally, Megan's voice cracked across the table like ice breaking. "Do you know how long we've been waiting for this? 4 years, Harold? 4 years stuck in this old dump in the middle of nowhere." I blinked. "Waiting? Megan, I don't understand. I'm giving you the cottage to enjoy, to build memories in." "Enjoy?" She laughed, sharp and cold. "We don't want to enjoy it. We want what it's worth. I've had a realtor assess it. Lakefront property in Muskoka? We're looking at $3.2 million, maybe more to the right Toronto buyer. That's our future, Harold. Not rotting away in your grandfather's shack." The room tilted. "You want to sell it?" "You've already had it assessed." "Of course, we want to sell it. That's the whole point." She stood, chair scraping against the hardwood. "What did you think? That we'd waste our lives playing caretaker for your precious memories? We need that money. We deserve it after 4 years of waiting for you to finally let go." I turned to my son. "Derek, did you know about this?" He stared at his plate. His knuckles whitened around his napkin. He said nothing. Of course he knew. Megan grabbed a framed photograph from the sideboard. My wedding photo. Eleanor and me, 43 years ago, standing on that dock. He's my husband, but he's too pathetic to stand up to his controlling father. She held the photo in both hands, looked at me with something like hatred, and tore it in half. The sound of the backing ripping echoed in the silence. Then she tore it again, and again. Pieces of Eleanor's face scattered across the marble table. "This whole cottage is a shrine to your dead wife." Megan's voice rose to a shriek. "We've had to live with her ghost for 4 years. Her furniture, her dishes, her photographs, everywhere we turn. Well, we're done. This is our house now. We've earned it. Derek hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't even looked up from his plate while his wife destroyed his mother's photograph. I stood slowly, picked up the pieces of Eleanor's face with trembling hands, placed them in my jacket pocket, one by one, gathered the cedar box with the deed still inside, untransferred, walked to the door. Behind me, Megan's voice continued. See? This is exactly what I told you. Your father only cares about his precious memories. He'll never see us as real people. The screen door closed behind me with a soft click. I walked to my truck, each step measured. My hands shook when I reached for the door handle. I gripped it until the trembling stopped. Inside the cab, I pulled out the torn photograph pieces. Eleanor's eyes looked up at me from fragments of our wedding day. I sat in that driveway for 10 minutes before starting the engine. The drive to my apartment in North Vancouver usually takes 3.5 hours from Muskoka. That night, I missed the turn for the 400 and ended up on back roads near Aurelia. A horn blared when I drifted across the center line. My knuckles ached from gripping the steering wheel. At every red light, I looked at the photograph pieces on the passenger seat. Eleanor, torn apart by a woman who saw her only as an obstacle to a real estate transaction. My apartment building rose against the mountain backdrop. I'd moved here 2 years after Eleanor passed, wanting something manageable. 2 bedrooms, view of the harbor, rental furniture I'd never bothered to replace. The key stuck in the lock the way it always did. I didn't turn on the lights, just stood in the entryway, holding the pieces of my wedding photo. In the bathroom, the mirror showed me clearly. A 67-year-old man with gray hair, hands full of torn memories. I touched Eleanor's photographed face, felt where Megan's fingers had ripped through the paper. I couldn't sleep. The image kept replaying. Megan's hands on the frame, the sound of tearing. Derek's silence, loud as any betrayal. I walked to the balcony and sat in the plastic chair I'd bought at Canadian Tire. Below, the harbor moved in darkness. Ships I could hear but not see. 4 years ago, Derek had called me 2 weeks after Eleanor's funeral. Dad, I know this is terrible timing, but Megan and I hit some financial trouble. Bad investment. Could we stay at the cottage for a bit? Just until we get back on our feet. 6 months, maybe a year. I'd said yes before he finished asking. Of course, son. That's what family does. Don't worry about the expenses. Just focus on getting stable. 6 months became a year, became 2 years, became 4. I never asked when they'd leave because I didn't want them to. I liked knowing Derek was in the cottage my grandfather built, keeping the family legacy alive. Year 2, Derek called on a Thursday. Dad, Megan has this incredible business opportunity, some kind of online consulting. She just needs $35,000 to get started. She's already got clients lined up. I transferred the money that afternoon. He'd seemed nervous on the call, voice tight. Megan had stayed in the background, called out a thank you I barely heard. That was 2 years ago. The business never materialized. The money was never mentioned again. The sky began to pale. I went inside and spread the property documents across my small dining table. Deed, tax receipts, insurance records. I'd been paying $22,000 a year in property taxes, $6,000 in insurance, utilities, maintenance, 4 years of that plus the $35,000 loan, over $140,000. And they'd already had the property assessed for sale. $3.2 million, she'd said, while living rent-free in my cottage, spending my money, destroying my wife's photographs. They were never grateful. They were waiting for me to transfer ownership so they could cash out. 4 years, and I was nothing more than a delay in their real estate plan. Derek hadn't said a single word, not when she tore the photograph, not when she called me controlling, not when I walked out. He'd sat there staring at his plate. That told me everything. Dawn broke fully. I walked to the bathroom mirror and studied my face. The lines around my eyes, the gray in my hair. I'd spent 35 years as a chartered accountant, then 15 as a financial advisor. I understood money, assets, legal ownership. I knew the difference between generosity and being a fool. I'd been a fool. They saw weakness. I placed the torn photograph pieces in an envelope, sealed it, wrote Eleanor, Evidence on the front in careful letters. Not sentiment, documentation. Then I opened my laptop. Time to apply what I knew. The screen glowed in the morning light. I opened a spreadsheet and titled it Asset Recovery, Lawson Cottage, Old Habits. Every transaction needs documentation. The next 2 weeks passed in methodical analysis. My small dining table became a workspace. Documents organized in neat piles, legal pads covered in numbered lists. My laptop perpetually open to Ontario property law websites. I worked the way I'd worked for 3 decades, systematically, thoroughly, without emotion, clouding judgment. First, the property documents. I examined every page. The original deed from 1962, my grandfather's signature in fountain pen ink, the transfer to my parents in 1978, the transfer to me in 1995, after my father passed. Every document carried one name, Lawson, my name. The property tax receipts told their own story. $22,000 per year for 4 years. $88,000 total, all paid from my retirement account. Insurance policies, my name, my payments, utility bills, all in my name. Then the loan. I located the bank transfer record, $35,000, memo line reading, business startup, Megan. The business never materialized. The money vanished. I entered each number into the spreadsheet. When the final calculation appeared, I stared at it. $143,000. Plus the emotional cost of my wife's photograph. The legal research took 3 days. Ontario law was clear. As sole property owner, with no lease agreement, I could sell at will. Standard real estate transaction. No tenant rights applied since they'd paid nothing, signed nothing, claimed nothing except entitlement. By the second week, I had my strategy. I pulled out a legal pad and wrote at the top, Recovery Plan. Step 1. Retain real estate lawyer for expedited sale. Step 2. Remove personal property and family heirlooms before notification. Step 3. Secure buyer willing to accept standard closing. Step 4. Provide legal notice to occupants. Step 5. Complete transaction. I photographed the page with my phone, then circled Step 1. Beside it, I wrote Catherine Webb, Bracebridge, with a question mark. Catherine had handled my parents' estate 12 years ago. Thorough, professional, no tolerance for complications. I'd kept her card in my desk drawer. The hardest decision came on day 12. I opened my desk drawer and retrieved my current will. Single page, straightforward language. Derek Lawson, sole beneficiary. RRSP, $280,000. Investments, $320,000. $600,000 total. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Margaret Chen's contact, my estate lawyer in Vancouver. My finger hovered over her name. Margaret, it's Harold Lawson. I need to revoke my current will and draft a new one. Complete removal of primary beneficiary. Her pause stretched long. Harold, that's a significant decision. Derek is your only child. I'm certain. Can you fit me in this week? Friday afternoon. I'll be there. After hanging up, I sat motionless. This wasn't anger. Anger fades. This was correction of error. That evening, I called Derek's number. It rang 4 times, went to voicemail. I dialed again. Voicemail, 3rd call, 4th call. Each rejection, noted like evidence accumulating. On the 5th attempt, he answered, Dad, look, I've been meaning to call. I need to collect some documents from the cottage. I'll be there Saturday at 10. Please be there. Documents? What documents? Dad, I'm sorry about Megan. She was just upset. She didn't mean Saturday at 10. I ended the call. My hand didn't shake this time. The trembling from 2 weeks ago had been replaced by something colder and more durable. Monday morning, I dressed the way I used to dress for client meetings. Pressed white shirt, navy tie, charcoal blazer. Professional engagement required professional appearance. Catherine Webb's office occupied a heritage building on Manitoba Street in Bracebridge, 15 minutes from the cottage. The waiting area featured worn leather chairs and walls lined with land survey maps. Professional, Established. Catherine emerged at 9 precisely. Late 50s, silver hair pulled back, confident handshake. Mr. Lawson, good to see you again. How many years has it been? 12. And it's Harold now. Her office overlooked the town's main street. I sat across from her desk and opened my briefcase, removing documents one by one. Deed, tax receipts, insurance policies, utility statements, the bank transfer record. Each document placed deliberately. I own a cottage in Muskoka, I began. My son and his wife have occupied it rent-free for 4 years. No lease agreement, family arrangement. 2 weeks ago, they made clear their intention to sell the property immediately upon transfer. They've already had it assessed. Catherine leaned forward, examining the deed. Registered solely in your name, correct. Inherited from my parents. No co-owners, no liens. She reviewed the tax receipts. You've maintained all financial obligations? Every payment for 4 years. They've paid nothing. I slid the spreadsheet across her desk. $143,000 in documented expenses, plus a $35,000 loan never repaid. Catherine studied the numbers, then looked up. Mr. Lawson, legally, you're in an unassailable position. The property is yours. No lease exists. Under Ontario law, they're guests who've overstayed their welcome. I want this handled quietly. Find a buyer, close the deal, then notify them. Catherine tapped her pen against the desk. Understood. Typical closing takes 60 to 90 days. We'll serve notice 30 days before closing. That's legally compliant. Your fee? Full representation through closing, $12,000. Acceptable. We shook hands. I left her office with a signed representation agreement and a clear timeline. The next 2 days I spent preparing for Saturday's visit. I made lists of every valuable item I could remember in the cottage, particularly in the spare room I'd used as a study. My mother's pine furniture, my father's fishing gear, paintings Eleanor had collected, photo albums spanning 60 years. That room held $40,000 in family history they'd ignored for 4 years. Saturday morning arrived clear and bright. I drove to the cottage carrying a camera, notepad, and measuring tape. The driveway looked the same, but I felt different pulling into it. Derek opened the door before I knocked. His face was drawn, dark circles under his eyes. Dad, thank you for coming. Listen, about 2 weeks ago, Megan was just... Not now, Derek. I'm here on business. Business? What business? Where's the key to the storage room? The storage room? It's unlocked. But why? I walked past him without answering. Megan's absence registered immediately. She was there. I could feel it, but hiding in the bedroom. Couldn't even face me. The storage room looked exactly as I'd left it. Pine furniture my mother had loved, fishing rods my father had used, paintings Eleanor had found at galleries across Ontario. I set my camera on a chair and began photographing each piece. Multiple angles, close-ups of any markings, measurements recorded on my notepad. Derek appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? Documenting my personal property. But why now? What's going on? I'm clarifying ownership. These items were never part of the cottage structure. They're mine. He shifted weight, hands in pockets. You're not going to take all this stuff, are you? These things have always been here. I stopped and turned to face him. Made eye contact. Held it until he looked away. Derek, these pieces belong to your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandfather. They were never part of the real estate. I'll remove them when the time comes. When the time comes? Dad, you're scaring me. Good. I returned to photographing. He stood in the doorway, another 5 minutes, then disappeared. I heard murmured voices from the master bedroom. The inventory took 2 hours. Every piece documented, measured, catalogued. When finished, I walked to the front door. Derek materialized from the kitchen. Dad, I nodded once and left. In my truck, I pulled out my phone and searched Appraiser Muskoka Antiques. The top result showed 5 stars, numerous reviews. Lakeland Estate Services. Owner Catherine Webb specializes in estate appraisals and authentication. I stared at the screen. The same Catherine Webb? I composed an email. Miss Webb, I need professional appraisal of antique furniture and family items at a property in Muskoka. May also need assistance with careful removal and storage. Available next week. Harold Lawson. Her response came within the hour. Mr. Lawson, I should mention I also handle appraisals through a separate business. Happy to help. Would Thursday work? 2 businesses. Lawyer and appraiser. Efficient woman. Thursday at 10. I'll coordinate access. The following Thursday morning, I arrived at the cottage 10 minutes before Catherine. I told Derek this was a professional insurance appraisal. Plausible. He'd agreed nervously, promising he and Megan would stay out of the way. Catherine's SUV pulled into the driveway at precisely 10. She stepped out wearing practical clothes, gray slacks, white blouse, carrying equipment cases. Everything about her movement suggested competence. Derek opened the door. Good morning. You must be the appraiser. Catherine Webb. I'm here to assess estate pieces for Mr. Lawson. Megan appeared behind him, overdressed for mourning. This is such a beautiful property, isn't it? Prime lakefront. She extended her hand with exaggerated warmth. Catherine's handshake was brief. Miss Webb. Then she turned to me. Shall we begin, Mr. Lawson? I'd like to examine the pine furniture first, while the light is good. I led Catherine to the storage room, leaving Megan standing in the hallway. In the storage room, Catherine pulled on cotton gloves before touching anything. She ran her gloved hand along my mother's pine dresser, examining the joinery. Eastern white pine, she said quietly. Hand-cut dovetails, original finish, 1,940 seconds. Craftsmanship, probably local maker. My grandfather built it, I said. Before the war, Catherine looked at me. Then it's not just valuable, it's irreplaceable. She photographed the furniture from multiple angles, made notes on her tablet. The pine set, dresser, nightstands, bed frame. Current market value 8 to 10,000, possibly more to collectors who appreciate Canadiana. But I suspect you're not selling, not to strangers. She moved to Eleanor's paintings, examining each carefully. When she reached my father's fishing equipment, she paused. These rods are exceptional. Hardy Brothers, original cases. Pre-war. She photographed them carefully. 4,000 minimum for the set. Megan appeared in the doorway. So, how much is everything worth? Her voice had that calculating edge. Catherine didn't look up. My report goes to Mr. Lawson. Professional boundary established. Megan disappeared. For the next 3 hours, Catherine worked methodically. Paintings, furniture, books, photographs, fishing gear, everything documented with photographs, measurements, condition notes. At one point, we were alone. Derek had retreated somewhere. Megan had given up hovering. Catherine paused. Mr. Lawson, may I ask something directly? Of course. Why are you having your own possessions appraised in what appears to be your own cottage? I hesitated. Something about her directness made me answer honestly. Because this is no longer my home. I'm going to take what belongs to me before I leave permanently. She held my gaze for 3 seconds, then nodded once. I understand. Do you? Yes. I've seen this situation many times. Family members who mistake generosity for weakness. Properties caught in the middle. She returned to her tablet. You'll need help removing these pieces. They're fragile, valuable. Based on what I'm sensing here, you'll want this done quietly. Very. I have a professional team. We can do this in 1 day when the cottage is empty. Climate-controlled truck, proper equipment, secure storage. She looked at me directly. If you trust me, I studied her face. The intelligence in her gray eyes, the steadiness of her expression. Years of dealing with manipulative clients had taught me to recognize genuine transparency. How much? 4,000 for removal and first month of climate-controlled storage. If you later choose to sell through my gallery, standard 20% commission. No pressure, clear terms. Direct. That works. Catherine nodded. Give me a day's notice. She handed me a second business card. Lakeland Estate Services. Same name, different phone number. Call this one for moving coordination. At the door, she paused. Mr. Lawson, I don't know your full story. I don't need to. But I recognize someone protecting what's rightfully theirs. That takes something. Stubbornness, maybe. She smiled slightly. Sometimes that's exactly what's needed. After Catherine left, I drove back to North Vancouver. That evening, an email arrived with a comprehensive appraisal report. Every item photographed, detailed condition notes, market values, then a handwritten note scanned at the bottom. Mr. Lawson, if you ever need someone to simply talk to, I understand how betrayal by family feels. I've survived it. You will too. Best, Catherine. I stared at that note for several minutes. For the first time in weeks, the cold determination inside me thawed slightly. I picked up my phone, started typing a response, then stopped. Set the phone down, walked to my balcony, overlooking the harbor. Maybe later. Right now, I had work to finish. 3 weeks later, Catherine called. Harold, I have interested buyers. Couple from Calgary, early 60s, looking for cottage country retirement. They love the lakefront, the privacy, offering $2.9 million. Below assessment. By $300,000, yes. But they're paying cash, waiving inspection, willing to close in 60 days. I'll take it. Excellent. Come sign tomorrow. I'll prepare notice for your son and his wife. I hung up and immediately called Catherine's other number, the moving coordination line. Can your team move everything this Saturday? Absolutely. Then I dialed Derek. He answered on the third ring. Dad, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Megan feels terrible about what happened. She wants to apologize. I need to collect personal items from the cottage Saturday. I'll have a moving truck there from 9 to 3. It would be easier if you weren't present. Personal items? What items? Dad, I don't understand what's happening. I heard movement, then Megan's voice. She'd grabbed the phone. You can't just show up and take things. This is our home. We've lived here 4 years. Megan, they're my belongings from my property. You'll receive a detailed inventory. Saturday, 9 in the morning. I ended the call. Saturday morning arrived clear and cold. I reached the cottage at 8:45. Catherine's moving truck turned onto the road at exactly 9, followed by her SUV. 3 men stepped out, professional uniforms, careful movements. Derek opened the door. His face had aged 10 years in a month. Megan stood behind him, arms crossed, dressed like she was attending a business meeting. They'd decided to stay, to monitor, to control what they could. Good morning. Catherine's voice was pleasant, professional. We'll work quickly to minimize disruption. She handed Derek a document. This is the inventory we'll be removing. Everything listed has been documented and photographed as Mr. Lawson's personal property. Derek's hands trembled as he scanned the pages. 3 sheets, photographs attached. Catherine's crew began immediately. Furniture, blankets, careful lifting, proper technique. 1 man individually wrapped each leg of my mother's chairs. Another used archival boxes for the fishing equipment, padding between each rod. Megan followed them. That dresser has been here for decades. It's part of the cottage. Catherine turned to her. Ma'am, this furniture is documented as the property owner's personal belongings. Each piece was inherited from his parents. You have no legal claim. I'll call the police. Please do. Catherine's voice remained calm. I have complete documentation, signed inventory, proper authorization. Megan didn't call. She followed the movers instead, protests growing shriller as the truck filled. Derek stood in the hallway, watching his grandmother's furniture disappear. He looked at me once. I looked back. He turned away. The operation took 4 hours. Pine furniture, Eleanor's paintings, my father's fishing gear, photo albums, everything on the list. When the last box was loaded, I approached Derek, held out a sealed envelope, complete inventory, every item documented, nothing that belonged to the cottage structure. He took it with both hands. Dad, why are you doing this? I looked at him. Derek, 4 weeks ago, your wife tore apart your mother's photograph in front of me. You sat there silent. You let it happen. I was in shock. I didn't know what to... You had 4 weeks to call, to apologize, to take responsibility. You did nothing. I turned toward my truck. Behind me, Megan screamed. We'll sue you. Our lawyer will destroy you. You can't do this to us. I didn't turn around. got in my truck, and followed Catherine's moving van out of the driveway. We drove to her storage facility near Huntsville. The crew unloaded everything into a climate-controlled unit. Catherine locked it and handed me the key. "Come," she said quietly. "Let me buy you coffee. You need to sit down." We drove to a small cafe overlooking the lake. Catherine ordered for both of us. She seemed to understand I couldn't make decisions right now. When the coffee arrived, she reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. "You handled that with remarkable composure, but I saw your face when Derek stood there again, not defending you." I looked at our joined hands. He's my only child, my only family, and I just fought a battle against him. No. Her grip tightened. You fought for yourself against people who were using you. A son protects his father when someone attacks. Derek stopped being your son a long time ago. The words hurt because they were true. Doesn't make it hurt less. Of course not. You're allowed to grieve what you've lost, but you're also allowed to protect yourself. I looked at her face. Why are you helping me? You barely know me. I know enough. I recognize someone refusing to be a victim. She paused. I spent 8 years rebuilding after my ex-husband tried to destroy me in our divorce. I recognized that strength. We sat in silence, her hand warm over mine. For the first time since Eleanor died, I didn't feel completely alone. Catherine's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, sighed. I should go. Client at 4. She squeezed my hand. Call me this week, maybe dinner. I nodded. I'd like that. My phone vibrated as she walked to her car. Text from her legal assistant. Notice sent via courier. Your son will receive it Monday morning. Monday arrived. I was making coffee when my phone rang. Harold, it's delivered. Catherine's voice was professional. Courier confirmed signature at 10:15. Derek signed for it. Thank you. The call came 40 minutes later. Megan first. I watched her name appear on my screen. Declined. Immediate callback. Declined. Then a text. All capitals. You won't get away with this. We'll sue. This is our home. 3 more calls from Megan. Each declined. Then Derek tried. I let it ring 5 times before answering. Dad. His voice cracked. What have you done? You can't sell the cottage. We live here. Our whole life is here. I kept my voice level. Derek, this is my cottage. It has always been my cottage. I had every legal right to sell it. You've received proper 30-day notice as required by Ontario law. But where will we go? We have nothing saved. How can you do this to us? That should have been your question 4 years ago when you decided to live in my cottage rent-free. Or 2 years ago when you borrowed $35,000 and never mentioned repayment. Or 4 weeks ago when your wife tore apart your mother's photograph because I wasn't transferring the deed fast enough. Silence. Rustling. The phone changing hands. You pathetic, cruel old man. Megan's voice raw with rage. We wasted 4 years of our lives in this cottage. 4 years maintaining it, living in your shadow. You owe us this property. Maintaining it, I paid every bill. Property taxes, $22,000 per year. Insurance, $6,000. Utilities and maintenance, another $15,000 for 4 years. That's over $140,000. You paid nothing. I owe you nothing. I ended the call, found Derek's contact, pressed block, then Megan's. 2 taps, 4 years of manipulation ended. The next weeks brought exactly what I expected. Catherine kept me informed. Derek and Megan consulted 2 lawyers. Both told them the same truth. No grounds for lawsuit. Albert Cooper owned the property, gave proper notice, followed every statute. But Megan refused reality. She found a lawyer in Toronto whose website promised aggressive representation. He charged $8,000 up front. They paid it, adding to their debt. Catherine called Thursday evening. They filed an emergency motion claiming oral contract, detrimental reliance. It's weak, but hearing is set for December 10th. Will it delay closing? Potentially. Our buyers are concerned. We'll handle it. That same week, Catherine and I spent increasing time together. Coffee Tuesday at a cafe overlooking the bay. Wednesday, dinner at a quiet restaurant in Bracebridge. Thursday, walking through Algonquin, talking about everything except the cottage. Friday evening, after she closed her office, we met at a lakeside restaurant. sat on the terrace, watching the sun set over the water. Catherine reached across the table, covered my hand. Harold, I don't know what's coming next for you. The sale, what happens after. But I want you to know something. You're not alone anymore. My throat tightened. I mean it. Whatever you need. Someone to talk to. Someone who understands what betrayal feels like. I'm here. I squeezed her hand, unable to speak. When I found my voice, it came out rough. That means more than I can say. We sat in silence as the sun touched the horizon. December 10th arrived cold and gray. I dressed carefully. Navy suit, white shirt, conservative tie, professional credibility. Ontario Superior Court, Bracebridge. Small courtroom, designed for quick motions. Derek and Megan sat at the plaintiff's table with their Toronto lawyer. Megan wore black, severe, the costume of victimhood. Derek looked ill. Justice Morrison entered. We stood, sat. Emergency motion for injunction. She glanced at her notes. Mr. Blackwood, you filed. Their lawyer stood. Your Honor, my clients lived in this property for 4 years with the owner's explicit verbal promises that the cottage would become theirs. They invested their time, their emotional energy. Objection. Catherine's voice was calm. The claim of explicit promises is unsupported by any documentation. Justice Morrison looked at Blackwood. Sustained. Do you have written evidence of these alleged promises? Well, Your Honor, family agreements are often verbal. That's not what I asked. Written evidence. Yes or no? No, but... Thank you. Miss Webb? Catherine stood, placed a thick folder on the podium. Your Honor, plaintiffs cannot produce written evidence because no such promises existed. Mr. Lawson has provided 4 years of documentation proving he paid all property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance totaling over $140,000. Plaintiffs contributed $0. They lived rent-free for 4 years. This is not detrimental reliance. This is exploitation. Justice Morrison flipped through the exhibits. Mr. Lawson. She addressed Derek. Did you pay rent to live in this cottage? No, Your Honor. But it's family. Property taxes? No. Insurance? No. So you lived completely free for 4 years? Yes. Justice Morrison removed her glasses. This case is straightforward. Under Ontario law, oral promises regarding property transfers have no legal effect without written contract. Mr. Harold Lawson owned this property, paid all expenses, provided legal notice. He has absolute right to sell it. Motion dismissed. Occupants must vacate by December 15th. The gavel struck. Final. Outside. Megan lost control. She rushed at me. You destroyed us. You destroyed your family. What kind of father does this? I stood still. When she finished, I spoke quietly. No, Megan. You destroyed what was left of this family when you tore apart my wife's photograph in my own cottage. I simply corrected the mistake I made 4 years ago. Behind her, Derek approached. His voice cracked. Dad, please. We have nowhere to go. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Derek, you had good income for 4 years. If you hadn't spent every dollar living rent-free in a cottage worth $3 million, you'd have savings. You made choices. I turned toward the parking area. Goodbye, Derek. Just his name. The relationship was already gone. I drove to Catherine's office. She saw my face, closed her door. I won, I finally said. Complete victory. And you feel terrible. I nodded. She crossed to me, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. You won a case against people who were exploiting you. A real son protects his father. Derek chose Megan over you every time. He's still my only child. I know. And you're allowed to grieve. But you're also allowed to survive. We stood like that for a long time. December 15th, closing day. I met Catherine at her office. The ceremony was surprisingly simple. Papers spread across the conference table. The Calgary couple, Robert and Susan Chen, excited about their retirement cottage. The wire transfer confirmation appeared on Catherine's laptop. $2.7 million deposited. I shook Robert Chen's hand. Take good care of it. We will, he said. It's beautiful. That afternoon, An RCMP officer delivered the eviction notice. Derek and Megan had 24 hours to vacate. They moved to a rental apartment in Barrie, $1,800 a month instead of free. Their finances had collapsed. Credit cards maxed from lawyer fees. 1 week after closing, I sat in Margaret Chen's office in Vancouver. "Harold," she said, reviewing my request. "Are you certain? Derek is your only child." Margaret, my son, sat silent while his wife tore apart his mother's photograph. He borrowed $35,000 with promises that never materialized. He lived in my cottage 4 years without contributing anything. Why would I reward that? She nodded. "Who do you want as beneficiaries?" 2 recipients. The Canadian Veterans Support Foundation, $280,000, and Catherine Webb, $320,000. Margaret looked up. "The lawyer from Bracebridge?" "Yes. When everyone else saw me as a resource, she saw me as a person." Meanwhile, Catherine and I spent increasing time together. Dinners, weekend drives through cottage country, gallery visits. She told me about her divorce, the betrayal, the years rebuilding. I shared more about Eleanor, about Derek, about regret. Late December, Catherine arranged for me to meet her daughter, Jennifer. Lunch in Toronto. Jennifer was 42, physician, intelligent, and protective. "I'm going to be direct," Jennifer said while Catherine was away from the table. "My mother went through something terrible. She's been alone because she's careful. If you're with her, treat her right." "I intend to." She studied my face, then nodded. "Good. She talks about you constantly." January brought an evening that felt suspended outside time. Catherine and I sat in my apartment, watching snow fall over the harbor. "I thought my life was over at 67, I said. "After everything with Derek, I had nothing left except existing." "No." She turned to face me. "You showed yourself you could survive. You fought for your dignity." I stood, held out my hand. She took it. We stood close. Snow falling outside, the future uncertain but somehow less frightening. I leaned forward. She met me halfway. Our lips touched, tentative at first, then more certain. Not desperate, deliberate. 2 people who'd earned the right to be careful. When we separated, she rested her forehead against mine. "I should go," she whispered. "Early meeting tomorrow. Have dinner with me tomorrow night. I want to celebrate." "Celebrate what?" "New beginnings." She kissed me once more, then left. I stood alone, watching the snow, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Actual happiness. My phone buzzed. Email from Derek. Subject line, "Please read." I stared at it, then placed the phone face down. Tomorrow. Tonight was for this feeling. Early February morning, I finally opened the email. "Dad, I don't know if you'll read this. These past 2 months have been the hardest of my life. Megan and I are barely speaking. I've started seeing a counselor. He asked me when I stopped standing up for myself. I couldn't remember. I let Megan control everything. I sat silent when she tore Mom's photograph. I've been a coward. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But maybe someday we could talk. I miss my father. Derek." I walked to Catherine's office carrying my phone. She read carefully, then looked up. "What do you feel?" "Relief that he's finally seeing what I saw. And sadness, because recognizing the problem doesn't undo the damage. And freedom, because it's not my job to fix him anymore." "No, it's not. He's 40 years old." "What will you do?" I typed slowly, deleted, retyped. "Derek, I received your email. I see you're beginning to understand. That's progress. But I need time. Maybe a lot of time. What happened changed me. I'm no longer the father who allowed himself to be used. If you're truly changing, do it for yourself, not to regain my approval. Be well, Father." I pressed send. Catherine wrapped her arms around me. "You handled that perfectly." Then she smiled. "Want to take a trip? Get away." We flew to Victoria, stayed at a small inn overlooking the harbor. Days spent at the Royal BC Museum, wandering through Butchart Gardens, walking beaches with views that stretched to the mountains. One evening, sitting on our room's balcony watching the sunset, Catherine spoke quietly. You know what I thought my life would be at 60? Small, quiet, alone. I reached for her hand. Then you walked into my office with your disaster. But also dignity, strength. I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the person who saw me, not my assets. I need to tell you something. When I changed my will, I designated you as a beneficiary. She sat up. Harold, no. I can't accept that. Stop. I placed my finger gently on her lips. It's about what you represent. You're the only person who treated me like a human being. I want you to know you matter. Her eyes filled. You matter to me too. We returned to Vancouver late February. Life settled into new rhythms. I began volunteering with Pro Bono Law Ontario, offering consultations to elderly clients. One afternoon, an elderly woman sat across from me. My grandson keeps pressuring me to put my house in his name. Says it's for tax purposes. Trust that instinct, I told her. That's manipulation. Your house is your security, but he's family. Family should protect you. Real family earns trust through respect. As she left, I felt something unexpected. Purpose. My pain transformed into protection for others. Late February evening, Catherine and I sat on my balcony, stars emerging above the harbor. Do you ever regret it? She asked. About Derek? I was silent for a long moment. I regret that the son I raised disappeared somewhere along the way. I regret not seeing it sooner. But I don't regret protecting myself. She squeezed my hand. I lived 67 years thinking I knew what family meant. Turned out family isn't blood. Family is who respects you when it's inconvenient. Megan was somewhere in Barrie, probably still considering herself a victim. Derek was there too. Maybe finally growing up, possibly too late for us. And I was here, holding the hand of a woman who treated me with dignity. I'd won, not because I'd destroyed anyone, because I'd rebuilt my own life. I smiled. Catherine smiled back. The harbor moved in darkness below. Stars wheeled overhead, her hand warm in mine. Justice achieved. Life rebuilt. Peace earned. I'd spent 35 years managing other people's money, protecting their assets. Now I'd protected my own. The rest was just living. And that, finally, was enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.